Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais from the Yakking Show with another weekly wrap-up, and this is for the week ending 1st of November 2024. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Refresh my memory. There's something important happening on Friday, the 1st of November, but I can't for the moment think what it is. Can you tell me?
I can't remember either.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, it's something to do with you, but anyway, we'll find out later what that is. So,
It's a birthday. It's a
it's a birthday.
birthday.
Oh, what it must be like to be young again. Wow. So we've got to tell our audience that we have yet another late summer-like day in southwest Ontario, where the temperature is up
Unbelievable.
to, I think we're
Mm-hmm.
22 centigrade.
22.
I walked this
That's
morning in t-shirt and shorts, no hat, no gloves, and I didn't even light the fire in the furnace because it's so warm today. It's beautiful, sun shining.
it is.
We had a light shower yesterday, but it's all good. I hope your weather, wherever you are, where you're listening to this, I hope your weather's treating you well. Kathleen, that's enough for me about the weather. Let's get on to your deep dive. You've got an interesting health topic to talk about today, so you
I
go for it.
do, Peter. And I want to talk about how your gut needs carbs for optimal health. Do you
Ah,
remember back? Oh gosh, I mean, when it comes to diet, there's still so much controversy. Everyone has an opinion. And it's all different. So remember back in the 80s, people were saying, oh, you need carbs, and carbs were all the rage, and you need it for energy, and you need it to work out, and then carbs became a terrible thing for some reason, and then they wanted you to dive into protein. I don't know. But this is an interesting article. It's from Dr. Mercola, so we're going to put the link for you at the end of this video. But carbohydrates have become the ultimate dietary scapegoat. Isn't that the truth?
mm-hmm.
Blamed for everything from obesity to chronic disease, which has led to many restricting or eliminating this from their diets. And they're often unfairly accused of being the primary culprit, not only because of the obesity epidemic that we have in North America, but also because of digestive disorders. So a common misconception is in gut communities and gut health communities is that carbohydrates primarily feed bad bacteria, leading to dysbiosis and digestive issues. And okay, just to be clear, when we're talking about carbs, Peter, we're not talking big bags of potato chips and donuts. We're talking about whole foods, single ingredient carb sources like potatoes and fruits, rice and quality made breads. All right. So 5 reasons why carbohydrates improve gut health. The primary one is to protect the gut barrier. So one of the most crucial yet overlooked benefits of carbohydrates is their role in protecting the gut endothelium, the endothelium. So it's basically the endothelium is a specialized tissue layer that's fundamental to our health, controlling what passes between our bloodstream and gut tissue while supporting immune function and nutrient absorption. It also helps to produce productive gastrointestinal mucus. And that's important. And why is
Mm-hmm.
gastrointestinal mucus important? It's for the protection of the intestinal lining, for the lubrication and passage of food. It's an immune function as mucus contains antibodies and antimicrobial proteins that help defend against infection. It's microbiome. It's to support the microbiome, and this provides a habitat for beneficial good bacterias in the gut. It also helps for hydration of the gut to help with proper digestive function. And you may not know this, but it's a lesser known but significant aspect of carbohydrate consumption. Its impact on thyroid health, which
Mm-hmm.
directly influences digestive function. So, and also it increases poop frequency and bulk. So there you go. And some of the best sources, as I mentioned, of carbohydrates is your rice, quality breads like sourdough breads, specifically, root vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes, fresh, ripe fruits, and masa harina, which is traditionally made tortillas. So
Okay.
there you go, Peter.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, if your lining of your gut is deficient, that's where you get the leaky gut syndrome, right? Where stuff that should stay in the gut ends
Mhm.
up going elsewhere, and that can lead to all sorts of complications. And just
Absolutely.
picking up on this thing about carbohydrate diet,
Mhm.
with my experience in Africa, many tribal black people in Africa's main diet is, we would call it maize meal, but let's use the North American terminology, corn
Right.
meal, right?
Right.
And that would be the bulk of their diet, just traditional food. They would make a stiff porridge and eat it either hot or cold, with sometimes with a sort of relish of vegetable, but quite often with very little and not much meat. And they did not suffer from the Western diseases of affluence, and there were very few obese people, tribal people.
Mhm.
When they got into the city and adopted a Western diet, some of them did get very much overweight, but the traditional people didn't, and they lived, some of them, long, productive lives on a diet that was mainly maize or cornmeal. So
Right.
it shows that carbohydrate is important. That's an interesting one, Kathleen.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
And it's because a lot of people say, "Oh, stay away from carbs. Carbs is your enemy." And of course, as I mentioned, yeah, there are carbs out there that you
Sure.
don't want to indulge in, but there are some good carbs too. So, but speaking of gut health, I wanted to bring up Dr. Morse's GI Broom, which is
Yes.
a product that I use, and it's fabulous. It's a powerful herbal laxative. No, your body does not become dependent on this as you would if you bought some over the counter at your drugstore laxatives. This is an herbal laxative. It's also a lymphatic puller. It functions to promote the removal of buildup in the intestinal wall using psyllium husk and Cascara
Mhm.
sagrada, while also stimulating the flow of interstitial fluid from the gut lining into the lymphatic circulation and elimination with the help of chickweed, mullein, plantain, and aloe resin. So it also helps to support the body's natural cleansing and detoxification process. So again,
Wow.
GI Broom from Dr. Morse. We will provide a link so that if you use the Yakking Show, or rather Yakking Show in the code, you will get a discount on the products. So there you go.
Right. There you go. So two aspects to keep your gut working properly this morning. Get your carbohydrate balance right and GI brew. And going back to what you were talking about, carbohydrates and diet, everything in moderation, right? And balance. That's what we need. Not
Right.
go swing too far one way or too far the other according to fads.
Mhm.
Good. So thanks, Kathleen. That was interesting. Now let's talk about what happened on the Yakking show this week. And I'm going to start off with a personal note. I was actually the other side of the camera and the microphone for a change. And yes, today Pat Wetzel, who has a podcast called Bump in the Road, a very good podcast, interviews some amazing people. She interviewed me a little while back, and she published that episode today. So there I am on the guest side of this whole podcast YouTube channel business. She has both video and audio. I'll put a link into the description. But if you want to listen to an interesting podcast, certainly go along to Bump in the Road. She's on Substack, most of the platforms, and she has some very good episodes. That was my little highlight of the week. Uh, our guest on Tuesday was May-Liis Kivistik, all the way from Estonia. And she talks about natural beauty. She also talks about face yoga, and she gives some demonstrations on the video. So, and Kathleen does too. I tried, but I think I'm a bit past doing anything to improve my looks, quite honestly. But she talks about herbal medicines, natural remedies. Very interesting woman. I found that quite very interesting episode. Learned stuff that I hadn't known before.
Mhm.
So she was our guest on Tuesday. Who have we got coming up? Well, we have Jeff Patterson coming on next week. Jeff Patterson's a martial arts expert, and he talks about the meditative arts and talks about Tai Chi and Qigong and the importance of meditation, mindfulness, and also very, very good episode. Coming up after him will be in the following week, Douglas Mulhall, returning guest, talking about elastin and
Mhm.
some new technologies that are using elastin for the treatment of
Aneurysms.
Hey, my mind escaped me. Aneurysms. That's right. Very interesting one there. And then rounding it off, we have, excuse me, Alan Lazaros coming up the week after that, talking about how to live to your full potential. So there's our lineup of interesting guests. Excuse me. Our featured author of the week, so Sarah Dawkins, with her book Heal Yourself, collection of stories, including her story of how she healed herself from a number of conditions and illnesses by really looking at nature and not using much in the way of prescription medicines. Yes, using them where absolutely necessary, but looking for natural remedies, holistic remedies. And her book contains stories from a number of other people who've gone on the same journey. So that's our featured author. And I think, Kathleen, that is my little bit done, except to remind people that we have a lot of very interesting guests, a whole range of interesting guests coming up. But to make sure you don't miss out on any, hop onto the website, yakkingshow.com, and sign up for our email. There's a form there. And now it's back to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Peter. And thank you also very much for tuning in once again. And until next week, we'll look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.